Okay, let's talk about the language a little bit, though, because I got lost on all of that. So, I understand what you're sharing is of terrific value. But what I want to segue here is, let's go back to this, because this whole energy discussion, when you're talking to building representatives or homeowners, it gets confusing, because I'm not a technical girl, right? So do you have something that can kind of bring this conversation into homeowners' language? Is that what we're talking about right here?
Yeah.
Is this a nice segue to this point now?
You want me to get up?
I don't know. I've asked you to get up like 5 times and then had you sit down. But part of it is because I really don't understand when, as soon as we're talking about this energy equation, as a housewife, I don't get it. So let's address that now.
We're going to need Max to come up front.
Max, give that iPad to someone who wants it.
I want it.
Okay. All right, and then we'll have Max be on deck.
Ran across a chart last week that really caught my attention. And it had to do with the average increase, yearly increase, I should add, in energy cost from 2000 to 2010. And for electricity, it's only been 3.5%. And what we've seen in our trade as a fundamental shift about a decade ago was the ability to start selling heat pumps in place of high-efficiency equipment that would actually, you could say, save more money, but actually the energy conservation value is greater than it is even with a 95% mod-com boiler. So that was a fundamental shift in my mental approach to this. Natural gas has seen 3.7% each year. Propane is 9.4% on average, but one thing to remember about propane is it's an unregulated fuel, meaning that the fuel company that's delivering that can decide what they feel like charging. And we had a lady last year in a trailer who went from just under $4 a gallon to $8 a gallon on her second delivery, which the local news media had a field day with. But oil has been 11% on average every year for the last 10 years. So what that presents to us as salespeople and contractors, all the people who are stuck out in the boondocks with oil and propane, this is a huge sales opportunity. And if you lose a sale on this deal, you might as well just go shoot yourself in the foot because it's a no-brainer.
Okay. Seems fair enough.
So, in order to make the sale, I had to come up with something that my customers could adopt and that I could understand and that they could understand that's in plain English. And I came up with the term energy conservation value, which is simply when you run the manual J numbers, you can project what it's going to cost to operate a given system. And in our area, I just use the run hours and the energy that it costs. And then we want the difference in the operating cost. So the difference in the operating cost becomes the energy conservation value of the high-efficiency, high-tech piece of equipment. And then in order to determine what that return on the investment is, we take the difference in cost, and this is the key issue here, and it goes into this payback issue, because that's always one of the first questions that comes up, especially with solar for some peculiar reason. But what's my payback? So knowing that I'm going to get that question, I wanted to have a way to diffuse that whole issue before we ever got started down that path, because generally anything beyond 3 years, you're done. So I wanted to work on the difference in cost between those two systems, not the total cost, because that's the shock value. So the difference in cost for most systems is about a $2,500 average. And so when we look at that, and we look at the energy conservation value of the higher efficiency piece of equipment, what I'm seeing is about a $500 reduction in fuel usage in the first year. So my energy conservation value is $500. My difference in cost on average is $2,500. So if I divide the energy conservation value by the difference in cost, I get a 20% return on that investment. Now, everybody can understand that, especially bankers. So if I go another step further, if I'm looking at oil, and somebody asked a question about this with geo. If I'm going from oil to geo at current cost for fuel, and I use a high-efficiency two-stage geothermal system, my energy conservation value in just the first year is $2,363. So now we're not talking chicken feed any longer. My difference in cost on average is $10,000 because the federal tax credits take the wells out of the equation. And when those go away, incidentally, there's new products come to market that Dan has installed and I've installed. The Daikin Thermo system, which is an air-to-water heat pump, has virtually the same efficiencies as these high-end products do, but you have no wells to deal with. So when 2016 rolls around, we're already ready to roll. So if I look at my return on investment over that $10,000, it's 31.5%. So another way that I approach customers sometimes, depending on how congenial the conversation is, how would you feel if I gave you $50,000 today?
I would like that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
who's not going to like that? The lifetime return on investment over 20 years for this, and this is from a real system that we did, $78,000, 135. So they had 2 kids, and I encouraged them to take this money that they were going to save each year, and that's with a 5% per year increase.
Let me just ask this then. So what you're saying is over the course of the 20-year lifetime, my overall operating savings are going to be $78,000?
$78,135, and that's with only a 5% increase.
It's only a 5% increase in oil, cost of oil, and that's pretty conservative.
Yeah, it's very conservative.
Okay, sounds pretty good. So I think you're on the right track. Have you written an article, have you put the math together, have you written an article about this?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be a nice thing to maybe make available to us if we went to your website or sent you an email or something. Because I just think you've got to get this conversation addressed on the kitchen table or in the mechanical room in a way that people can understand. And you've also got to be careful about promising them a certain return on investment given the different variables that are involved.
Quick question.
What I do with that, when I do an energy cost projection on what the system's going to cost to operate, I explain to them, here's what I'm using for the fuel cost. Here are the run hours that we're going to do every year. Here's what the equipment energy consumption is, or gallons per hour of fuel oil. And I also add in the electrical consumption so that we know that if it's a blower or circulator, whatever that device is that's going to move the energy, that's now incorporated. And the geothermal, the manufacturers get a free pass on what the energy cost is to run those circulators for the geofuel. I bring that into play. I brought that to the table so that they understand full well that that's included. And then I add the caveat that we can't really make this a precise number because I don't know how many times you're going to open and close the doors. I don't know where you're going to keep your thermostat. So at the end of that equation, there's a disclaimer on my part that I'm not responsible for that hit and that number.
But what I like is you're at least willing to be, you sound so educated about it, as a housewife talking, and you sound very educated. You're willing to put it out in some pretty simple terms, but the math is sound. But as Dan said earlier, that's not the only reason why people buy. It could be without any return on investment, they're still going to want the nicer equipment. So it's not the only way there. Okay, and I'm getting...
Going back to that
sheet
that you have up there on the wall, just to put those numbers that you had up there in perspective, can you tell us the size of the system that you were installing there? Was it 5 ton, 10 ton, 2 ton?
That was 5 ton.
That was 5 ton.
Yeah.
And a 5 ton drives normal size ranch house? Or a little bit larger?
No, I'd say a normal size ranch house if you upgrade like Dan said, if you upgrade the building envelope first, which we did in one particular system, took it from a 60,000 BTU gas furnace down to a 2.5 ton load.
I'm going to time out this conversation because it's too technical. All right, just because I get that we're talking about how we're going to sell this, and I think so. My apologies, but it's too far over my head.
If you look at the market out there that he's projecting that into.
Okay, let's give him the microphone back. Let's make that point. But the technical piece of it is beyond me. So
the market that he's projecting that into in larger homes, etc. It's huge.
Okay, that's worth underlining. Absolutely. Okay, good. I just was too lost. I didn't want to stand up here with my mouth hanging over.
Well, and he doesn't even touch on a commercial system that gets up to 10 or 20 ton.
Are you getting excited about this? Let's hear it. Oh, come on, everybody. Are you getting excited about being able to sell this? All right, good deal. Now, we've got room for a few more questions.
You touched on something that's an important aspect of sales. You said as the wife.
Right.
When I go on a sales call, I look at the husband, I make eye contact with both of them. I let the husband think he's driving the deal, but I let the housewife know that I'm listening to what she's saying and I'm responding to her needs because she's going to make the decision, not him.
Well, and that might be a little sexist to say that. But, the bottom line is, how many of you make sure that all homeowners or decision makers are at the presentation? Raise your hand there. Okay. Do you get that really good tip? I mean, there's no sense in presenting or asking questions of someone who's not going to be able to make a decision. So that's a really good point. All right, who else has got a question? We've got a few more minutes. We're going to be giving away an iPad in a few minutes. In the meantime, we can lose an eye. So who's got one? Okay, what have you got? I'm going to hand this politely. There you go. Okay, let's mic you up.
It's okay, I'm loud, so.
Okay, good.
I hear everybody talking mostly about payback. You talk a little bit about ROI. Nobody ever talks about NPV, I guess, because it confuses everybody. So, how do you really get across the energy savings? And, I mean, payback is, I think, too simplistic myself.
So maybe more plain speak ways of addressing this question.
Yeah, when you want to, like if you talk to someone about payback, you're just giving them a date. You're saying this system's going to pay back in 2 or 3 years. And if you turn that into ROI, a 2-year system is 50% ROI, a 3-year system is 33% ROI. That's a really big number, but people don't necessarily focus on that. You have to look also down the line. Is it going to pay back in 2 years and then die and you're done? Or is it going to pay back in 2 years and you're going to have it for another 50 for your cooling tower on the roof?
That's a subject that does come up.
Let me add to this though. Like on a percentage
He's talking
basis.
about reliability of the equipment, am I right? That's what you're...
I'm talking about, if you talk only about payback or even ROI, I mean, everything that you got to be able to pass across the knowledge of the full value of what you're doing, and payback doesn't have enough there because it's just 1 day and the system pay back, but that doesn't really matter because the system is either going to be there for a long time or it's not, and there's other costs that are coming along the way and other savings they might be having along the way.
Would it be an appropriate question to ask how much of the overall reasons to buy boil down to payback or ROI? As you sell a system, Eric, how much of the conversation is actually about the return on investment or the payback of the system?
Very little, actually. But then again, I'm not selling systems that are $250,000. I'm speaking with homeowners in their home at their kitchen table. I make the point that these, the systems I'm installing, a boiler system or change out things like that, are these components that I use assemble as a system are really there to last for 20 years, and that after the energy is saved, hopefully all along the way. After you've retained the money back or not put it out at the same rate you were before, that those systems will remain in place for hopefully a good long time. I take it's probably a similar end result, but a different approach as Dave, and I don't have I know of his term energy conservation value because I read his articles, but basically it's comparing the projected operating cost versus like last year's utility bill. I can't tell you what the weather's going to be tomorrow, but I can say what you've spent in January of last year, and I can show you that this product of a higher efficiency rating is going to save you the difference, based on these numbers. That's a tough question. I don't.
What else do you sell on? Come on, that's where I'm trying to go here, because the numbers are going to only be so sexy. What else do you sell on?
2 points. I think if you're going to, it's hard to project forward, but you can look backwards and say, hey, here's what you spent last year. If you had this equipment last year, you could have, under the same conditions, you could have spent around this much, and that would be a difference of this. We can't predict the future, so we really don't know, but looking backwards makes a lot more sense than looking forward. Another thing I've had success with is explaining to people that, hey, this is a boiler, okay? It's not a slot machine. So this whole payback thing, people get confused on what it really means. This is a boiler, it's not a slot machine. It's never going to come up triple cherries, and money is never going to come spewing out the relief valve. You're never going to reach a point 7 years in the future where the utility company goes, well, holy crap, looks like we owe the Finnegans some money, get our checkbook for that. That doesn't happen, but that's what people think when you start talking about payback. And a friend of mine, Wes Cisco, who used to work with, had a great analogy. He said, it's not a boiler, it's a pig. It eats fuel and it poops heat. And that's really all it does. What we're aiming to do here is put that pig on a high fiber, low fat diet. And we're just trying to make whatever it is you got to spend every month as little as possible.
I like that a lot too. And isn't it, I mean, these systems are going to make people more comfortable. They're going to deal with the difference in the air quality. There's more to the overall
and the thing that I think everybody forgets is we're not going to rip out a perfectly good recent vintage system to put in something of higher efficiency. 9 times out of 10, you're replacing something that needs to be replaced anyway, right? It's at the end of its life cycle. It needs to be replaced anyway. It's just a matter of what you're going to replace it with. Are you going to replace it with, as Dave says, a good system, a better system, or a best system? And now you're not trying to sell the whole cost. You're talking about the difference between, a decent system or one that's, Christmas, New Year's, and the ban on Chinese imports all rolled into one. You just got to make the right, show them the benefits and the values of those steps, and then shut the hell up.
All right, let's get one more question, and then I don't know. Maybe we could even flirt with this iPad a little bit. We've got 2 now to give away, Dave's and the brand new one. The brand new one. We got a question?
Just Alex.
Sorry.
Exactly.
I thought she was going to throw a ball.
I thought she was going to.
Oh, here I am. I got Briggy with it. We're going to try for a big one.
Go ahead.
Oh!
Now I don't have to worry.
No, it's coming back next.
Still coming?
What's up next?
Off the table.
Yep. Oh! That was dramatic. Okay, let's see where we can go.
On the commercial side of the market, what a lot of the high-rise apartments always need boilers for hot water and/or heating. They work on net operating income, or NOI, which I always sold on ROI till somebody explained the difference. And basically, it's the cost of operating that apartment. And if you can reduce that $100 or $200 per suite on a 200-suite unit, the value of the apartment goes up. We've replaced systems, 4-year-old boiler systems, with new high efficiency, because they know the operating expense when they upgrade, and they're getting upwards of 54% return on their money from not paying the utility.
Now, it seems to me, too, for you to discover that, you had to ask some good questions and listen. How did you discover that?
That took many years with a good friend who can do tremendous slides, PowerPoint slides, on ROI and all these descriptions, and it was amazing, and I could finally follow it. And then he said he got to an accountant, and it came down to NOI, not ROI.
And then as far as figuring out who would be interested in those kinds of replacements, so how did you approach customers for whom that would be appropriate?
Found one building owner, owns 300 apartments. They know the cost to the penny to operate an apartment. So they buy buildings with high NOI for the cheapest price because it's too much to operate. They'll then invest $2 or $3 million in the building to upgrade water, lights, heating system. Now their NOI drops, in some cases, as much as $400 a suite.
So this
if they want to sell it, they now get top dollar to flip the building, or they now, are just making money on the building.
That's an interesting take on that approach here. Very well done. Is there? We got a question back here.
Just quickly, what is NOI on that?
Okay, explain that again. The difference between NOI and
what is the actual
net operating income?
Thank you.
net operating income. Now, I'd like to ask a question, and you guys can jump in here too. Let's put the numbers aside, because again, I think that's one of the reasons to move to these fantastic systems. But who else has had success selling at higher prices than their competitors on features other than payback or return on investment? Does anybody want to share a thought or have a question about that? Panel, you want to take it?
I'll jump in.
Okay, Dan?
I don't disagree with that thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's just more to the story.
I do it a different way. I sell comfort and reliability, and without using high efficiency equipment. I'm not an investment advisor. I'm a mechanical contractor. I put in systems that work, that are comfortable, and that's my selling point. It's a different way to arrive at the same point.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what I was trying to get at here. I think there's more to the overall story because some people, especially if they have really big homes, may want to even assuage their guilt, perhaps, that they've got some extra income that maybe they could be cutting-edge pioneers as far as energy efficiency. There may be different reasons for people to get involved.
Well, here's an example. What's the return on investment of a snow melt system?
On a what?
Snow melt system. There's none. It consumes huge quantities of BTUs. There's nothing efficient about it, but plenty of my clients buy those systems because they want it.
Because they just want it. What kind of system was it?
Snow melt.
Oh, yeah. A snow melt system. Yeah, we're not talking
There's no return on it.
efficiency there. Yeah, but they want it. And so if you ask good questions and listen, then you can provide what's needed and wanted.
Exactly.
And some people can afford more. Like what you said, Rod, it doesn't mean that it's just a high-end. Energy efficiency isn't just for high-end clients, is it?
And on the solar thermal, some of the contractors, the bigger contractors that we work that sell solar thermal, you got to be a little more careful with the solar thermal because it's not a predictable fuel. You can't tell exactly how many days the sun are going to shine. So when they sell this contractor down in New Mexico, and they do apartment buildings and big buildings, is they'll tell them how much energy they're going to offset in gallons of propane or whatever the fuel is they're using. So then they don't put a dollar amount on it because who's going to call if they didn't say $20 that next month or $200 over the year, whatever it might be. They say, well, the system must not be working. You told me I was going to save X amount of dollars. So they put it in a fuel quantity and let them do the math. So if the propane doubles in price or whatever, now you're not tied into a price. And that works better with the solar because it is such a fickle energy source. So you got to be careful with the numbers sometimes because that's the last thing they're going to hear is that dollar amount that you promised you're going to offset or save. So.
And Eric, one of the advantages, like sometimes we think, oh, if I were a bigger company, I would have these advantages. And then big companies I visit with say, gosh, if I were just a one-man shop, I could have all the flexibility and do things the way I want to do. From your perspective as a smaller shop, what is it that causes your customers to say, I'm going to say yes to you? What is it that they really love about you that you could share as a tip for smaller contractors?
Well, I find it, I'm a little taken back that you have to ask.
Can I give you a green ball?
No, actually, that's my answer to the question because I maybe don't have an answer. No, I think it comes, again, sell yourself. Don't forget that it isn't their money. I could repeat a lot of different things that I do that made these guys successful, and hopefully one day I'll be there. But, I don't try to predict the future. I look in the past. You got to be confident. You have to be technically savvy, of course. I'm not an advisor. Why do people say yes to me? I think it's the customer, the prior customers that have brought them to me. I think that has a lot to do with it. It's past experience. And, you gain a lot of confidence in your prospective sale by, getting the referral in the door.
I love that. You may want to get the most for your investment. I know you might want to investigate this a little bit. Why don't you call? Because they might be hearing I'm going to get 2 or 3 bids, and you're going to suggest that they call perhaps a past client.
Yeah, I put everything I can get on the internet with my name behind it, if it makes sense. I use a Twitter account, Facebook. I go on manufacturers' websites. I talk with people in different groups on Facebook. I use my website. If somebody says, hey, I really like the look of that new tankless water heater in our mechanical room, you can bet there's going to be about 200 people in the next 5 minutes that are at least going to have the opportunity to see it on the internet from me because I got to get the people in the door and I have to listen to my past customers and try to get those people to be my salespeople.
Okay, let's hear that question. John, I know you're on deck here too. Yes, sir?
You're going to dream about me tonight, I'm sorry.
Who, me? That's my husband.
That's why.
Man.
Do you guys ever get involved with energy efficiency mortgages or suggesting that to your customers? Because I know the banks can write those as a secondary position mortgage on a single-family home.
Well, you've shared a lot, but you've had some good ideas, and that's another one.
Done that?
What do you think of that? Or Barba, do you want to add that and then also leverage what Eric had said?
I did a podcast with a gentleman named Allison Bales, who actually he likes to tell the story about he was one of the only men who was on the Who's Who of American Women in the HVAC industry. That's his name, Allison. The guy, teaches classes on HERS ratings, and he's very well versed in energy efficient mortgages, and those things are so underutilized, it's frightening. But you have to actually prove on paper that the benefit of the value of the improvements will actually save money once you package the improvements and the refi cost all together. And if that's not something we're looking at, we're seriously missing the boat, big time.
That's pretty cool. And then you were raising your hand as Eric was talking.
Well, a couple things. Eric talked about being online, Facebook, etc. If as a business person, if you don't have a Facebook page, shame on you. It's the new word of mouth. Facebook is most definitely the word of mouth. That's where people are. So I think it's one of those things. It's like not having a business card. You have to have that presence. You know, you don't have to play Farmville. You know. But, you know, follow Eric's blueprint on how to run his Facebook page because he does a wonderful job.
Become his friend, right?
Yeah.
You could be his friend.
Or no, he
That's like my page.
I like your page. I like your page. Well, let me add that to that too. I work with some clients who have big companies, and there's no way, no how they're going to do a Facebook page because they are afraid of what people will say about them. Right? So if you are willing to take it, to make it better, to deal with the feedback, to be present online, you are absolutely David to their Goliath. Absolutely in this day and age.
You talk about word of mouth. You know, there's positive word of mouth, but if you don't think you don't have negative word of mouth, I think again, everyone does. It's just the way it is. Wouldn't you rather hear about it, you know, and be able to respond to it rather than someone telling everybody else? So again, don't worry about that negative feedback on Facebook. It's a gift, and you can approach it that way.
All right, we're getting excited. We're going to give away. We're going to give some stuff away. I want you to know that when TMB and PHC News put this panel together, they were not afraid to make it a non-denominational panel. John and Dave don't write for the magazine, but I do want to point out that the shining stars columnists on this panel do write for PHC News. Hot Rod Rohr and Dan Foley and Eric Aune. And myself, and my son Max Rohr also makes a guest appearance now and then. But I applaud TMB for putting together such a diverse panel. Wouldn't you agree that this has been useful to you today? Very cool. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the raffle right here. Except for you, Ingrid, can't win. Everybody but Ingrid has an opportunity to win. So John and I are going to pick somebody, but here's what we're going to do. After we have the iPod drawing, and we wildly applaud for the winner. What? iPad. Yeah, it's not even an iPod, it's an iPad. It's all cool. iPad 2. So we're gonna give that away, and who's an holler? You have to be present to win, right? Okay. And then what I'd like to do is take the mic and go kind of rapid fire around the room. What we want you to leave here today with is 1 or 2 tips that you can use as soon as you leave this room to start selling nicer systems. So as we rattle our cage a little bit, think about that. Think about what you got out of today. We'll have time for 1 or 2 more questions, perhaps.
And one comment just on Ingrid, I know you can't win, but don't worry, your birthday's coming up.
Oh, yay! That's right. And that's a national holiday for all of us. Become Ingrid's Facebook friend, and you'll know it's your
Celebrate
birthday.
the feast of St. Ingrid.
Yeah, St. Ingrid? Okay. Okay. Right, so. Okay, all right. Ingrid, no. All right, if we had that Alan Parsons music, we could play it right now. Okay, Matthew Coleman. Yay! That is so wrong. I put the iPad right here and it disappeared. No!
Oh, I'm sorry. Here it is.
You're just messing with me. Come on up here, Matthew. Let's give it up for him. Yay! Oh, don't take my picture, Kate, as I hand this to Matthew. Facebook. Okay, there you go. Hey, congratulations. Are you excited about that? Okay. All right, let's give it up. One tip, one aha, what hit you today that you're excited about or you want to share or you want to at least help somebody out before we wrap up this session today? You better have one. After, yeah, what? A dog. Oh, okay. That's a good tip. All right, who's got an idea? Let's hear it. Who's done something helpful for sales that they'd like to share? Help a brother or sister out here. Okay, John, you go with one. You got one? Ingrid?
Don't discount women. 80% of the buying power in the next few years, so that's where the money is. So.
Don't discount the women. Rock on, sister.
Jen,
let's
we want to
get
get a
a
still
little shout out
shot
to the
of
women
Ellen
in
and the winner of the
HVAC world.
iPad.
Oh, yeah,
I've already
for sure.
told them.
All right, one more tip and then we'll wrap this thing up and we'll give a standing ovation to our panel. Who else has got a tip? One more, let's hear it. I'll give you a full-blown iMac Air book. Just easy. Where is it? Go ahead and share your tip. Listen more and talk less. Panel, you've been terrific. Let's give them a standing